which I like a lot. But this is. It seems as though we're all coming from like very diverse backgrounds. So I don't know. I guess whatever. Ruby. Let's go. So new and shiny Rails 3.1. So 3.1 is right. It's in release candidate right now. But so when Rails 3 came out, a lot of stuff changed, but not that much. I wasn't too surprised. It didn't like blow my mind. But Rails 3.1. Now that I'm following the community a lot more of Rails, there are like a few like pretty serious differences, and it's in release candidate right now. It's not, if you like new up a Rails project, it's not going to be 3.1, but if you gem install Rails, that if you do
pre,
oh yeah, if you gem install Rails pre, then you'll see it. And here are like some. It's very bright. So if you were to like, the main like changes that I'm concerned with are an asset, well, I'm not going to read off of there, but asset, I will go over these. These are the main changes, and we'll go over them individually. Asset pipeline. So it's like, everything that you used to have in your public directory, which used to be like, you wrote and it wasn't compiled or anything like that. It was just in your public directory, like your JavaScript files, like application.js. That sort of stuff was just in your public JavaScripts, but now it's been moved to assets because they're trying to encourage everything to be sort of pre-compiled. So, so your application.js is now application.js.coffee, so it's like the default's coffee script, and they're encouraging you to write in higher level languages. I don't have an example of coffee script for that, but aside from, so they're trying to do CoffeeScript, they're trying to do Sass, but much more importantly, even if you just write in standard CSS and standard JavaScript, everything, because it's in this assets directory, it gets pre-compiled down into, and it gets packaged. It gets packaged by uglyify.js. There's a little asterisk there to talk about later. But so they're trying to have these things be more of a piece of code as opposed to a piece of statically served assets. So these things move through a preprocessor, and then that gets served. And another component of this is it encourages like multiple asset hosts. So it encourages you to set up your application such that you should have like a place to type. Oh, I can't edit that. Okay, but it encourages you to set up your application. So if you have an application and you want to be high performance and you want it to be served quickly, then what you're going to do is, instead of like by default Rails 3.0 or whatever, it would be like, you know, www.superawesometommy.com and slash and then public style sheets or something like that. But to make your application serve assets in general more quickly, images, style sheets, JavaScript, anything like that, what you'd do is you'd give it a different subdomain. So you'd say like a0.superawesometommy, like .whatever.com. So then so you'd spread those out. You'd spread, so say you've got like, you know, 10 JavaScript files. You'd serve them from A0, A1, A2, A3 at your host, and then /JavaScript. And you do that because browsers in general, they'll only download stuff from like four different hosts at a time. So if they're downloading something from your host, they'll do it sort of synchronously. But if they're doing it from, if they can parallelize that process if it's from multiple hosts. So what happens is, even though these assets are just aliases to other hosts, they'll download things like 4 times as quickly. So this style sort of encourages you to do that, and it forces you to package things, to minify them, which is unique and good, and I support that. And that is sort of new to Rails 3.1. Next up is jQuery, which I don't have much to say here. I mean, probably everyone knows jQuery, has heard of jQuery, and Rails 3.0 was trying to not rock the boat too much, so they didn't change from prototype. But now they're strongly encouraging, well, they're bundling with jQuery by default, and that means that the Rails support code for remote requests and stuff is done through jQuery, and I really like jQuery. So there's not too much to say about jQuery. Reversible migrations is another thing. So in general, so this change, and again, all these changes are coming up in like a month or so because they're still ironing out the bugs, but you don't want to catch it blindside you. So migrations in general in Rails 3.0, you'd have like a def up, def down, and when you're migrating, it would run the up, and if something went wrong, you'd run the down. But basically, you'd have the same code. It would be like def up, and then it would be add all of these things, and then you'd repeat it, and then just change it to say delete all of these things, or reverse them in some way. And now that they just have a change that understands how to do, and so this add index is wrapped inside the change, and they understand, like Rails understands intuitively that if it's reversing this migration, then it would be removing that index, and if it's adding a column, then it would be removing that. And another component of that is it's getting a little bit more higher level in terms of how you're referencing and adding these tables. So instead of saying like t dot integer user ID, you just say something like t dot references a user ID, and it understands that that's an integer and that you need to and it'll add the ID, and it understands that it's an integer. And the reason why you want those things is because that sort of abstracts you a little bit from the database. Because if you have your database set to be, you know, like Postgres, or you have it MySQL, or like Oracle. I've never used Oracle, so maybe like Oracle might be like super big integer. Who knows? So it sort of abstracts you from that layer. Oh, that's really bright. And one of the most important things is that, and this isn't just Rails 3.1. This is Rails 3.0.9, which is coming out like this week. But it's you know, right around the time of 3.1, so it's sort of like, this could be called like new Railsy stuff, I guess. And that's it. They've like completely rewritten Active Record, and there's an incredible talk by Aaron Patterson, who goes by Tenderlove, which is like the most awesome name ever. But it's called "Oh my God, why is this code so slow?" Oh, I added to check it out. And you can get to that talk here. And he talks about how from Rails 2.3, it went from like super slow, from like moderately slow to like crazy slow, and that's a component of why Rails is like, oh, Rails is slow. And Rails in Ruby is slow. Like Ruby is kind of slow, but what you make up for in development, what you lose in performance, you make up for in development time. But anywho.